Newcastle United made their bid for Benjamin Sesko earlier today. Some sources say the bid hasn't been rejected. Other sources says it has been rejected. Or apparently, they've not rejected the fee, but they want a sell-on clause added. La, 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 la. But Newcastle United made a bid for Hugo Ekitike, I think in an attempt to try and persuade Hugo Ekitike to come. But Hugo Ekitike still went to Liverpool. And those inside Newcastle are apparently fearing the same is going to happen with Sesko, that even though they're making a bid, they fear that the player wants Manchester United. However, the player hasn't made a choice. I don't think it's as straightforward as he wants Manchester United, he's going to go to Manchester United. I think Newcastle are really pushing. They're willing to give him big wages. And I think Manchester United need to step up their game if they do want to get Sesko. If United miss out on Sesko, the alternative is Ollie Watkins, which I'm not against. I think the price of Sesko is going up and up and up because of Newcastle. Leipzig are enjoying this. Leipzig are getting a bidding war. And we're going to round up everything you need to know on Benjamin Sesko that's come out today because it is a bit of a circus. But look, I'm at the mindset right now. I like Sesko, good player, but if United miss out on him, I'm not bothered personally because I think it's a lot of money for a young striker. We need a midfielder, we need a goalkeeper. I'm happy with Watkins as an alternative. I don't know what your thoughts are. I like Sesko. I want to sign him, but if we don't sign him, not the end of the world for me. Let me know your thoughts. We're going to talk about all of that. Bruno rejecting Saudi, more updates on that. Manchester United looking at Hjulmund, Manchester United looking at midfielders. Fabrizio Romano confirmed earlier today that United is still looking at midfielders and still want a midfielder. But before we get into that, let's get into the news about Bryan Mbeumo and what Ruben Amorim has had to say on players ahead of our clash versus Everton tomorrow. Ruben Amorim on Bryan Mbeumo. Ruben Amorim said he's going to play versus Everton. I'm really excited to see him play and what he can give to our team. So, yeah, Bryan Mbeumo is finally going to play for Man United. It'd be nice for Mbeumo and Cunha to both be on the pitch. Cunha missed the match versus Bournemouth due to, I think, some injury concerns or a little knock or something. So, it'd be nice to see them both on the pitch. But to finally see Bryan Mbeumo in a Manchester United shirt, I'm excited. I can't wait. I think he's going to ball out, bish, bash, bosh. So very happy to see Bryan Mbeumo getting his first minutes potentially in a Manchester United shirt tomorrow. I'm really happy and excited about the signing. I think one of the reasons I'm not too bothered about Sesko, we need a striker. I know Højlund's looked good in pre-season, but I just don't think we can rely on him going into next season, is because we know with Mbeumo and Cunha we get goals. So I'm less concerned about the striker position now. I still think we need to sign a striker, but because we've got goals in Mbeumo and Cunha, I still do think midfield and goalkeeper is important. My ideal striker would have been Mateta. I think he's Premier League proven good price. Watkins, good option. But yeah, I like Sesko. I'm happy to get him. I just feel like the price could be mad. Also, Ruben Amorim made it clear that he wants players that 100% want to be here and going to work 100%. So if Sesko says to Man United, 100% want you, 100% want to be here, we go for it. But if he's still stuck, we have to look at it. Sesko dragged on this Arsenal deal for weeks. Sesko talks with Arsenal for weeks last season, not this summer when Arsenal choosing between Sesko and Gyökeres, but the summer before, Arsenal tried to sign Sesko. He dragged it on with his agent for weeks, only to stay at Leipzig. And he could do the same to United and Newcastle. He could just stay at Leipzig. You never know. Sesko's taking his time with his decision. But if he 100% wants Man United, I'm sure United will go for it. Newcastle sent that bid without indication from Sesko. United apparently going to wait for indication from Sesko before making a bid. We'll talk about that in a second. But what else has Ruben Amorim had to say? The players are working really well and they understand that they need to give 100%. If they do not give that, it's going to be hard for them here. That is important. So Ruben Amorim said the players are working really well and they understand that they need to give 100%. If they don't do that, that's going to be important. And one thing I've noticed in these preseason games, which is why I'm actually excited for the Everton game, is versus West Ham and versus Bournemouth, the amount of energy and the amount we were giving in those games was definitely 100%. The Villa game, the last game of the season, these two preseason games on tour, the football we've seen from Manchester United, if we go into next season playing that, brilliant. But the difference is there's no pressure. That Villa game, the season was over, there was no pressure. These preseason games, there's no pressure. I worry when the pressure comes, can we do that? Anyway, let's talk about Benjamin Sesko. So, obviously, Newcastle made a bid of 75 plus 5, which is 80 million euros, which is 65 plus 5, so about 70 million pounds. This is what RB Leipzig want. They say Benjamin Sesko can leave for that price if it's one of his chosen big clubs. So, I assumed the bid was going to be accepted. Reports said it was neither accepted or rejected. However, David Ornstein said that Leipzig view this as insufficient. He doesn't say the word necessarily rejected, but he says insufficient. I'm assuming they maybe want to change the structure of the add-ons, or they maybe want to change the sell-on clause, because this fee is apparently going to be accepted. I don't know if it's they want more money, maybe they don't like the structure, maybe Newcastle want to pay it over 4 years and they want it paid over 3 years, maybe Newcastle's first instalment isn't good enough, maybe they think the add-ons aren't realistic, maybe they don't like the sell-on clause. I don't know if they've rejected it because they want more money. Maybe it's to do with the structure of it, because there's a lot of mixed reports going about, and I really don't know who to believe. And I think the media knows that Sesko is going to get clicks because Man United's involved and Newcastle fans are desperate for a new signing. And obviously Liverpool are really invested in this because of Isak. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff. Obviously David Ornstein doesn't do this. David Ornstein is a genuine top journalist. He doesn't put stuff out for clicks. But I do think there's a lot of people in mainstream media with the Isak situation. There's so much about that, and it's changing every hour. And I think with the Sesko situation, because it gets clicks, I think every journalist is trying to write something on it and maybe doesn't know what's going on. And I think it's one of those where one journalist says this, another journalist says that. And until we really get it from Ornstein and Romano, I think everything in regards to Benjamin Sesko, we need to take with a pinch of salt, because I think journalists are trying to get an exclusive. Like yesterday, it broke that Sesko had agreed personal terms with Newcastle and chosen Newcastle last night. And Newcastle fans were getting all excited on my timeline. Man United fans are freaking out, and it wasn't even from reliable sources. And I think it's a case of everyone's so desperate for something to happen that they believe in anything. And I think the situation is, look, if Sesko is going to cost more than £70 million, it's ridiculous in my opinion. He's not worth more than that. But Newcastle are going to make a lot of money for Isak. There's a lot of pressure on Newcastle to get a player, and so I understand why for Newcastle they might have to overpay. For me, I would rather spend, if Sesko's going to cost like £80 million, because he's 70 million now, if that's been rejected because they want 80 million, I would rather spend it on Baleba. I like Sesko, a good player, but I would rather spend it on Baleba. But look, I think Sesko, if you can get him for £60 million, decent deal, decent bit of business. It's just a difficult situation because, like, sources keep saying the bid was accepted. No, it wasn't rejected. So sources keep saying the bid was rejected, and other sources saying it wasn't rejected. David Ornstein saying insufficient. So I just think there was something with the bid that maybe they didn't like. But if Leipzig want more and more and more and more than this, because I think Newcastle's bid should have been accepted, they're holding out for a bidding war between Man United and Newcastle to get the biggest bid they can. But apparently there's some agreement that they let Sesko go for this price tag if it's one of his chosen clubs. Is Newcastle not one of the chosen clubs? I don't know. I don't think really anyone knows. Now, Ben Jacobs said that Leipzig are hoping or waiting for an offer from Manchester United for Sesko to create competitive tension, and maybe they've rejected the bid because they want to see if United will bid more. Maybe they've rejected the bid because they feel like he wants Manchester United, so if they reject this Newcastle bid, it might push Man United to bid even higher than that and get even more money. I don't know. But what is being said by Alex Cook and Ben Jacobs, who've been pretty accurate in regards to their information, is that Newcastle do fear that Benjamin Sesko is holding out for a move to Manchester United after seeing their 70 million bid rejected. Newcastle sources said this the other day. They said this yesterday in the day that Newcastle fear that Sesko prefers United. Newcastle sources have said there's a feeling that Sesko prefers United. Man United sources have said it. Mainstream media have said that they feel like Sesko prefers Man United. But Romano said, while Sesko's excited about joining United, he's still not chosen between Newcastle and United. So while it's been heavily reported Benjamin Sesko does prefer United, he's not chosen. He could choose Newcastle because United has been a graveyard for strikers. Newcastle do have Champions League football. It seems he prefers United, but he might see Newcastle making that bid. He might see Newcastle putting the money down now and think, okay, Newcastle really want me. And that might attract him because Newcastle did the same for Ekitike and João Pedro. They didn't get João Pedro. They didn't get Ekitike. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they thought that putting the bid down would show the player they're serious. Maybe it could convince Sesko. I wouldn't even be shocked if Sesko stayed at Leipzig and this was all a game because we know how Sesko's agent works. But Newcastle do fear they could miss out on this. I feel like the Benjamin Sesko situation is getting boring to talk about. If we're to believe the media, he prefers Man United to Newcastle, but he hasn't chosen. Newcastle are making bids. Newcastle are pushing. Newcastle could change his mind. Leipzig want as much money as they can get. Sesko's agent is playing it. Sesko hasn't made a decision. He could be at Leipzig. He could be at Newcastle. He could be at Manchester United. I think the more and more the price goes up, I don't like it. I think Newcastle need him more than we do, and I know we need a striker big time. But if Newcastle, they don't need him more than us because there's a possibility Isak could stay, but we don't know what's happening with Isak. But I just think it's a big media mess. I think people are guessing. The feeling is he prefers United. That has been reported. There is always a bit more of a towards Man United and media reporting because we get the most clicks. But we'll have to wait and see. He's not chose. If United miss out on Sesko, they could step up their interest in Ollie Watkins. I think Kambissa are available for 40 to 50 million pounds. Mateta available for 50 million, but apparently he's not allowed to leave Palace. Watkins available for 50 million. If we miss out on Sesko, it's not one I'd be mad about. If we missed out on Cunha and Mbeumo, I'd genuinely have been upset. Missing out on Sesko is a blow because I think Sesko could be the next Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but it's not one where I'm like, that's devastating. Obviously, all the other strikers were linked to us older. I prefer him to Nicholas Jackson, but it's not devastating. Continuing on into the final few stories, Ben Jacobs did say that Bruno Fernandes intends to stay at United for at least another year. Obviously, Al Nassr have made an approach with Bruno. He's obviously got connections to the manager, Jorge, through Sporting, but Bruno does not want Saudi. We know from Duncan Castles that Amorim has also been attempting to bring Hjulmund to the club. Romano said earlier today, and we covered it in my video today, that United will be in the midfield market. And one of the players, according to Duncan Castles, who's quite a credible journalist, particularly when it comes to George Mendes clients, and Hjulmund is a George Mendes client, is saying that United have attempted to bring Amorim to the club, but it would be a difficult deal. He's not worth anywhere near that. Amorim has attempted to bring Hjulmund to the club. It would be a difficult deal. I don't think we'll get Hjulmund. He's not worth anywhere near that money. He's not the best on the ball, but he's a good player with good physicality. Duncan Castles has very good connections to Portuguese players, so I think Duncan Castles, there is something going on there. I'm sure we have an interest. I don't think we could afford that on a midfielder. Anyway, that is the news. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Bye.